Hi friends, Max Elash here. On this episode of the Corpus Animus podcast, we have training think tank coaches Ryne Sullivan and Kyle Ruth talk about running. They also run this conversation all over the place, but it's an enjoyable episode. Listen up. Before we get into it, make sure you hit that subscribe button because we're on our road to 35K subscribers. And when we hit that milestone, we're going to give away a Black Zinc Rogue 2.0 barbell. Leave a comment below letting us know if you enjoy running or if you'd rather sniff a fart than go for a jog. That comment is what's going to enter you into the giveaway. Once we reach that 35,000 subscriber milestone, we'll use a random YouTube comment generator on one of these videos where we promoted the giveaway to draw a worldwide winner for that bar. So all you got to do is be subscribed and comment below to enter. Train along some of the best athletes in the world at the sport of CrossFit. To get a free sample week of our current training cycle, head over to trainingthinktank.com/DSGN.
Your beard should be in contact with the microphone at all times.
All right. Most important question to start the show, boys. Who you picking for the Super Bowl? I think by the time this release, we'll already have an answer. So we'll see how smart you are.
Wait, better question. Kyle, who's playing in the Super Bowl?
I don't know. I don't care. I really don't care.
That's a lie. You do know who's playing.
I know that. No, I actually don't.
Give it a guess.
Okay. I'm going to say we're going to go with the Steelers and the Atlanta Falcons.
You were very close.
I really, like, to be completely clear, I really don't care.
Yep. I think that the Chiefs are going to win.
All right, moving on.
Who is playing? Just so now that I can be enlightened.
The Chiefs and Buccaneers.
Man, I'm excited for that. That's
Tom
so
Brady.
awesome.
Yep.
I could give a shit.
Brandon's boyfriend.
Yeah. Oh, really?
Yep.
That's news. I didn't know that.
He loves Tom Brady.
He does.
See,
He references Tom Brady quite a bit.
If you ever quit in a workout, Tom Brady would blah, blah, blah.
This shows you how much I truly care about American football.
Yeah.
You say it that way, meaning like you care about regular football?
I care about no other sports.
Yeah. So you can't say that.
That's not entirely true. I like the Olympics. That's cool.
God.
But that's a bunch of sports.
Yeah, exactly. So what it really means is that I
care every 4 years.
What's your favorite Olympic sport?
To be honest, even though I was a swimmer, I like track and field the most.
Who's your favorite track and field star?
Well, I wish that Usain Bolt was still running. I just was checking out his Instagram today. He had some awesome videos of like his 200-meter world record, his 100-meter world record posted up. And that is a feat of human performance that is just absolutely incredible.
Yeah.
I like human racing, I think.
In general. Yeah. I think there's a couple of guys who are supposedly pushing his 200 right now.
I'd love to see it.
Yeah. I mean, I thought when he set that, because it was so far below the world record at the time, that it wasn't going to get touched for at least 3 or 4 Olympic cycles. And here we are.
Like right on it.
Yeah.
That's one of the things I think that's so cool about human racing sports in general is like you go all the way back to the 4-minute mile with Roger Bannister, right? Where there were scientists who were like, oh, we've calculated that the human limit for performance is the 4-minute mile. And then Roger Bannister ran sub 4 minutes. And then right afterward, it was like, bam, here's 2 more, bam, here's 3 more. And then now people routinely, high school students routinely run sub 4-minute miles. The same thing was true with like Kipchoge and the marathon, right? Like those things are all like the 2-hour marathon couldn't be broken. In the 1990s, someone calculated that it was humanly impossible to run. Yeah. Look at that, dude. That is insane. So just so you guys, if you're listening, Chris is playing some stuff from Bolt and it's just absolutely insane how much faster he was than everybody else.
The one thing though, with the marathon is we don't know that it is humanly possible with normal things, right? They're running in those Vaporfly, Alphafly shoes that in theory add 2% economy, 4% economy to your running. And according to some of the people and the coaches that I've listened to talk about that could be up to 1 kilometer's worth of distance on a marathon, which at their paces is 2 to 3 minutes.
Right. I totally understand that. But I guess my thought, I don't want to be on the side, or I think it would be foolish to be on the side of saying it's impossible for humans to do, because like, how far into the timeline of running marathons are we with like any seriousness, like worldwide timeline on marathons, maybe 100 years?
Yeah. If that.
I think that to think that we've reached some pinnacle of human performance there is just like, it's super naive. And I think anytime that people put these like perceived boundaries on performance, they always get blown away. The same thing happened in swimming. When I was growing up, when I was in high school, people were like, no one will ever break 19 seconds in the 50 freestyle. The record was like 1908 or 1906. And then I think my freshman year in college, some dude went like 18.4. And then people were like, oh, the 18-second mark is the fastest anyone will ever go. Fast forward like 2012 or 2013, and someone pops like a 17.7, which to me as a sprinter, as someone who swam there, is like unfathomable how someone could go that much faster than I was. But at the same time, like, who am I to think that like my performance was the pinnacle of something? And I think that's where people really get caught up.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people think that if they are not capable of doing it, then no one is capable of doing it. One thing I was curious, though, is drawing the parallel from running to swimming. Swimming had the bodysuits for a little bit. Are we seeing their times come back and then get broken now, right?
That 17.7 was done without a bodysuit. That's what's really insane is like the first person to break 19 seconds.
Did they make the bodysuit illegal or something?
Yeah. So the bodysuits were legal, and man, this is going to be hard to remember. So bodysuits were legal 2000 Olympics, 2004 Olympics, and maybe 2008 Olympics. I'm struck, man.
2008 makes sense because I was friends with a lot of swimmers in college and they all had the suits.
Yeah, it definitely was 2008 Olympics because I swam the 2009
It doesn't matter what year.
World
Go ahead.
Championship trials, and I wore a bodysuit when I swam. And then they made them illegal after that. So a lot of those world records, like that first 18-second 50 freestyle was done in a bodysuit. So what everyone said was, oh, the only reason, it's like the Vaporfly.
Right.
The only reason they swam an 18.4 or 18.6 or whatever it was because they were wearing a bodysuit. And, you know, the same can be said for the 2-hour marathon. The only reason they did it is because it was controlled conditions, you know, blah, 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 all these things. But eventually someone's going to come in and absolutely smash that.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's just a matter of time. I'm just curious as to how long it takes in a true race, right? Because that wasn't a race.
Yeah.
That was a production.
I think once it's been done, the timeline to someone doing it again faster is shorter. The thing that's so impressive are the people who are the ones who smash those barriers, the Roger Bannisters, you know, the people who break that, you know, perceived barrier that everyone else, you know, most of the people that they're racing against and running against or competing against perceive those as absolute like factual barriers. And they just are in the process of plowing through it. It's impressive.
Yeah. I mean, I watched the documentary on Kipchoge recently, and he said in the documentary that people thought he would die if he ran sub 2 hours. He's still alive, so they were wrong.
Well, yeah, that was some scientists in the 1990s calculated out the mathematical like limit for human performance in the marathon and said it was 2 hours, and that to run faster than that would require someone to die. Well, that was wrong.
And there's a kid right now, I think he's 26, who is smashing everything at short middle distances, like 5K, 10K, 15.
Did you say the kid was 26?
In distance running, that's young.
Sure.
And I am very curious to see what happens when he starts extending out, because he has said he wants to own every world record above 5K.
Oh, he said that?
Damn, that is ballsy.
I mean, he has 3 of them right now. Dude. 5, 10, and 15.
So what's left? What are the other distances that he could potentially...
Half a marathon.
Those are really different than 5, 10, and 15.
Yeah, for sure. But...
I mean, what is a marathon in kilometers? What is the...
That's a great question.
Chris is working on it for us.
1.6 times 26.2.
I should know this because I'm helping someone prepare for an Ironman. I should
40.
have this, but I have it in miles in my head.
Yeah.
42.1 kilometers versus 15. So almost triple the distance. We're talking about completely different energy systems. We're talking about completely different running economies. We know that just from my own experience in swimming, that like the way you swim a sprint is vastly different than the way you swim a mile. And you have to have economy developed for each of those different things. Is that your own experience with running as well?
Yeah, for sure.
Ooh, weren't we talking about economy for CrossFit movements the other day, Kyle?
Yeah, we were, Chris. We were talking about burpee economy. And in fact, talking about having different styles of movement for different types of movements, right? I think the burpee is like the most classic example of that.
The burpee, but I think back to 2013 at regionals, like we both did Jackie that year. You saw all of the top times were guys who went super wide with their feet, squatted at or maybe not quite too parallel, me being one of them, and probably shortening your lockout if the judge is letting you get away with it, but like having a wider grip on your barbell to shorten the range of motion.
Did you know I won Jackie for the Mid-Atlantic region in 2013?
Did not.
From the first heat.
That's impressive because everybody else has your score to chase.
Yep. The last heat, there was a guy that was right on it and he ended up breaking his pull-ups. He broke 30 pull-ups, but he broke his pull-ups at like 20. And I was like, well, got you. Mark another one. But yeah, it was exactly that. I did my thrusters literally as fast as I possibly could. I caught 7 no reps and still maybe 5 no reps and still.
What was your time on that?
I want to say it was 5:13, maybe 5:12.
With no reps.
With no reps.
That's impressive.
I was a good rower relative to the field at that time though.
Yeah, I was not. Mine was just like coast and then sprint.
But you take that same, so you're talking about economy of movement. So that's thruster sprinting. Now let's take that and extrapolate it out to 16.5, 14.5, right?
Which is
27. I think it starts at 27, 21, 15. Does it start higher than that?
21, 18.
15, 12, 9, 6, 3, thruster, bar facing burpee.
Which workout is it?
14.5 16.5.
Yeah. That workout right there, because of the volume of thrusters, the fact that it was 95 pounds instead of 45 pounds required a vastly different thruster style in order to be successful. And you get this accumulated tricep and pressing fatigue because you've got the bar facing burpee versus going into pull-ups. So the way that you need to perform your thrusters there is vastly different than how you would perform them in something like Jackie with an empty barbell.
Yeah. If your metabolic system can handle it like a very strong leg drive and just letting the bar coast off of your shoulders and then just kind of like guiding the press out instead of like actively pressing.
I remember watching Froning do them back in 2014 when he was, sort of the pinnacle of the sport at that time. He had this really pronounced pause at the top of every thruster where he'd get, a good breath and then cycle through the next one. And I adopted that, but that's so different than what you're doing in something like Jackie, where it's just absolute sprint. The moment that you touch your lockout at the top, you're pulling the barbell right back down to your shoulder.
Yeah. And the other thing to keep in mind there that's possible for you because your shoulder positions are really good from swimming. For me, that's not a thing. Like I can't
would be blowing your shoulders up, right?
Right. So I am better at keeping closer to a sprint and then dropping the bar and picking it back up than trying to elongate the rep to make it more sustainable.
Well, the reason I like the burpee to talk about movement economy in general is because most people, and when I say most people, I'm talking about like the depth and breadth of CrossFitter, like the 500,000 CrossFitters that just do CrossFit on a daily basis. They look at burpees as a simple movement, right? Oh, you just drop to the floor and you get back up. But when you talk about doing burpees at a high competitive performance level, like then it becomes something that's vastly different than just drop to the floor and get back up. It's something where there's a ton of nuance to the movement. And for the same person, the way that they would do burpees in open workout 20.1, so for elites is like 8 to 9 minutes versus the way they do burpee, the same movement, bar facing burpees in a workout that was like a 20-minute AMRAP would be very different. For the short, 8 to 10 minute workouts, they're sustaining really high cadences. They're likely jumping both feet up, doing like a lateral hop, staying low to the bar. And for the longer ones, they're likely, taking that extended step to the bar, still staying low, focusing on like getting the chest to the ground and getting back up to the knee quickly or something like that. So they're two very different techniques for different types of workouts.
Yeah. And I think what we're going to see and what we have seen is that the elites are able to keep that high power style of burpee and make it more sustainable and start to do that on the long end. And I think that's just like the natural progression of any sport. But that movement, I think when you're talking about people thinking it's oversimplified, I think everything can be oversimplified or overcomplicated.
Yeah. A great example of that is double unders, right? most people, if you're like, oh, do you have double unders? They're like, yeah. But then you look at someone like Travis, who's, notoriously one of the better double under athletes in the sport. And you watch him do double unders next to someone else who's, they've got their double unders or they're even relatively good. And Travis's rep cadence is faster. His jump is lower. His hands are in tighter. There's less extraneous movement. His economy, or the way I'm using economy here, is really efficiency of movement and speed of movement is just way better. So he's recovering and doing them faster than the person next to him who's, getting gassed and jumping higher and doing all, has a bunch of movement faults.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we see it on site in particular. We have a few of our higher level athletes whose cadence is like 95 to 100 double unders per minute. And then Travis is like 120.
It's funny. I was actually just talking to him about that the other day. We were talking about a workout and he was walking through, and I think the workout started with 300 double unders. He's like, yeah, he's like, I'm going to try and shoot for, the first 120 to 130 of those in the first minute. He's like, I think 300 double unders unbroken would be like just over 2.5 minutes or something like that. And it's just like, you think about that. And I look at 300 double unders. I'm like, all right, that's 3 to 3.5 minutes. For him, it's 2 to 2.5 minutes. It's insane how much faster.
How many athletes do you think could just rattle out what their time is like he just did?
Well,
that seems to be like, and maybe I'm wrong, but it seems like most people don't know that info about themselves.
That's definitely the case. I feel like Travis, for as much as he has, as much as he plays when he's in the gym, has spent years and years and years becoming more mindful and aware of what he's doing. You've probably seen that just in the time you've been here.
Yeah. I mean, he dissects the sport for himself very, very well. I mean, I think he does it for other people as well. But the most important thing for someone who is making a living doing that is that they can do it for themselves. But yeah, I would say I have 30 something athletes, and I have maybe 3 to 4 athletes who can hit the nail on the head with every single workout that they're going to do. This is how I'm going to be able to do this. This is exactly how long it's going to take. This is how long my rest breaks are going to be. And to see him do it with almost 100% accuracy on a regular basis is really impressive.
Well, with the Open coming up, I think one of the things that's really interesting that you just pointed out is like, you've only got 3 or 4 athletes on your roster that can accurately predict how they will perform in a workout, an unknown workout, one they've never tested before. And I feel like that's one of the things that as a coach, you can help them upgrade, not do it for them. So what I mean by that is you can help teach them how to learn those things for themselves versus, spoon feeding them strategies and things like that. I feel like a good coach is not someone who necessarily just does the work for their athlete, but rather would guide them to how to create a good strategy. How would you go about doing that with the other, 30 athletes that you have that wouldn't be good at?
So first and foremost, it starts with results reporting, right? If I give you,
he said it.
Oh no.
Right. So I give you, let's say I've given you Helen. What's your best Helen time?
Oh gosh. Sub 7.
All right. So we know that your runs have to be pretty fast. Let's just hypothetically say
tell the audience what Helen is real quick.
Helen is 3 rounds for time of a 400 meter run, 21 kettlebell swings, and 12 pull-ups.
And that's like 53:35?
53:35. It's pretty remedial for an advanced CrossFitter now.
It's grippy,
but like 12 chin over the bar pull-ups for Travis or Noah or any of those caliber of athletes, like that's a joke. And so is 21 kettlebell swings at that weight.
Agreed.
I mean, but in 2009, it was very challenging. Let's say that you have an athlete who just gives you the time of 9 minutes. It's like, well, that has no context. Maybe you are capable of running the 125 400s that we need for a good score, but you're breaking your kettlebell swings or your pull-ups are just a complete disaster. But if that's all you're doing is just giving me a score and you're not putting anything in the notes for yourself to reference later in the workouts.
Give an example of what would have been good to you.
So the first thing I would look for is give me your score at the top, then give me your 400 splits. And obviously that's not going to be 100% accurate unless you're filming it, because you're not going to do the math inside of the workout and know exactly when you left the gym.
To that point, this is a long time ago, but one of the things Max and I worked on when he was my coach, this was probably 2014, was being able to run faster in Metcons. And so I just bought a really cheap sports watch. And when I walked out the door, I pressed the lap and split when I got back. And it took no time out of the Metcon. And I just had to get in the habit of doing it. And we tracked running, Metcon running time. So to that point, you can absolutely do it if you're intentional.
So we give our 400 meter splits on each round. We talk about the kettlebell swings. Did you do them unbroken? Did you break them? How did you break them? Was that your intention in the workout? What were you experiencing? Right? For me, that was a low back issue workout. It was not a grip workout.
The combo of running into the kettlebell swing hinge
into the arch body position of the butterfly pull-up.
That's interesting. That's not one I've ever experienced.
So different experience, right?
Yeah.
What you have to do with me is probably have better midline control under fatigue so that I'm not like overextending on the kettlebell swing. I need to improve my shoulder position so that I'm not having to overextend to get the kettlebell overhead. Those types of things provide me as a coach with an opportunity to give you, one, a better program, and two, like a better strategy to help mitigate the limitations that you're experiencing in the workout.
Well, that's how you'd approach it as a coach. So that's the feedback you'd want from a coaching perspective. But what I would want the athlete to do, how I said, like, what I want to do is teach the athlete to be able to be better plan and better analyze their own performance, is like, take those splits. And then I want them to be able to do, all right, what's your drop off per round, right? They should be able to look at that and be like, my first 400 was 130. My second 400 was 144. And my third 400 was 206. Okay, coach, there's a problem here. Like, how can I improve this issue? That's what I want athletes. In fact, when I was saying,
what percentage of athletes do you think are doing this?
Well, if they're one of my clients, they're in the process of learning to do this or have learned to do it. So I would say,
it seems like really low hanging fruit to just watch your video and then figure these things out.
These are things that I believe that athletes should be doing for themselves if they are invested in getting better at the sport. They should not expect someone else to do this for them. When I was coached by arguably the best coach in the sport, you were coached by Max as well. Max didn't sit down and break down my split times for me and give me a strategy for workouts. What he did is he gave me the tools to be able to do that myself. He taught me how to do it one time. And then his expectation was that I was going to continue to do it. And that's how I approach it with my athletes as well.
Yeah, I think the value in us giving him videos was so that he could see our movement degradation over the course of a workout so that he could upgrade his prescription over like teaching us how to pace. Because the reality is one, you have to believe in your pacing structure as an athlete, right? So if I give you this pace and you're like, I don't really know how I feel about that, you go in with doubt, and having doubt in a workout is never a good thing, right? So I'd rather you just come up with your own strategy and just be like, I feel 100% confident that I'm going to execute this strategy. And as a coach, I might be saying, well, probably not, but I'd rather you have confidence in the workout and your strategy than not.
To that point, if you have someone who's at, say, whatever they're called now, the semifinal, regional, continental, whatever.
Phase 3?
Phase 3.
Yeah.
If you have someone who's at phase 3 and their strategy is like, I'm just going to go hard, you're probably going to advise them differently in that situation, especially if that's like, their make or break. If it's their first time at a continental, then maybe
it's going to be everyone's first time at a continental.
Touche. If it's their first time at a major qualifier, how's that, Chris? Is that better?
Sure. We'll take that.
Okay. If it's the first time they're at a major qualifier, then you might let them make those mistakes. But if someone who's like in a qualifying position, you're not going to just be like hands off and be like, oh yeah, sounds like a great strategy. Go do it.
Yeah. But I would probably do that through questioning rather than this is what I think, or this is what you should do. Right. As soon as we start kind of using imperative language, I think people withdraw a little bit more and aren't as receptive to your feedback.
I think on this point, part of what we're talking about is people just being a little more, what I would call professional with their preparation and more intentional with how they approach workouts. And I think it's really straightforward. Like we've had our competitors manual since like 2017, freely available, right? Like just out there.
Where can people get that?
A good question, Chris. Where can people find that right now?
That's a great question, Kyle.
Is Chris going there now? But yeah, we've had this competitor's manual out that I put together forever ago, which basically walks you through the process of planning a workout, right? From start to finish. How do you set up your strategy? How do you set up your competition day? Like just by doing that, just by being a little more intentional with the way that you approach workouts and then going back and reviewing them afterwards, you're going to be going through the process of learning how to do that better and better and better. And I have personally found, having athletes that have finished on podiums at sanctionals and things like that, that just simply taking the time to be a little more professional, to bring a little more intention to the competition leads to more success, period.
Yeah. The other thing I really like about the competitor's manual is that you're outlining your day. If my day is outlined the day before, I do this for work and for my own training. If my day is outlined the day before and I know exactly what I'm going to do, it just takes some of that cognitive strain away from the day. So it's just, oh, this is my next task. Go execute.
It's funny that you say that, but this white notebook, this is my time blocking notebook, right? So like if you just look every single day, this is 7, 8, 9. So people that can see it, it's like 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. This is my day. My notes from calls and things like that. Like
I love that's not on your iPhone.
Dude, I used to do it on my iPhone and it was just time consuming and it didn't feel like it was something that was helping me. I like to sit down I keep my calendar on my phone. I like to sit down with my phone either at night or first thing in the morning. The very first thing I do when I got my coffee, and I write it out, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And I plan out my day. When I do that, I get my stuff done faster. I'm more focused. I know when I want to do what I want to do, know when I'm going to train. I'm more likely to get more out of my training and be, like you said, less cognitively fatigued when I go into my training session.
Yeah. Mine's on a whiteboard, so I'm probably a little bit more environmental friendly, but no big deal.
And I say that my plan for today only goes up to the podcast. And then I was like, I don't know what's going to happen after the podcast. Some days we get done with these and I can't do anything. Some days I can go in and I can just crush work afterward.
Yeah, I don't really have a choice for this particular week because I have the programs that need to get out today. And if I let them bleed into tomorrow, then that means that Fridays are going to bleed into Saturday. And then I'm going to start messing with one of the big things for me is having a work-life balance where I'm not writing programs specifically on Sunday, but not doing a bunch on Saturday either.
We just shifted gears so hard from preparing to compete to coaching productivity.
Yeah.
But that right there is, I think it shows that the systems that improve productivity as a coach or someone who feels the need to be productive can also help athletes become better athletes. Like I'll give you a great example. Do you think an athlete that's under constant financial stress, constantly wondering whether, like they're living paycheck to paycheck and wondering whether or not they're going to be able to, pay for their coaching or pay for their gym membership or things like that. Is that athlete going to likely be successful competing against people who are more organized and more intentional with, other aspects of their life?
No, I mean, it's your classic rich get richer, right? Like the professional athletes in this sport are paid to work out and to train. They don't have to have jobs. I'm sure they don't have healthcare through their promotions. I mean, I could be completely wrong on that, but healthcare is easily affordable if you're under a quality contract.
I do know that Matt Frazier is sponsored by some sort of telemedicine setup.
Yeah.
So that's covered.
Yeah. And you see a lot of times people
free plug. Geez.
Yeah.
People set themselves up in good situations. So Fraser lived at home with his parents for a while he was competing, and he won and was still living at home. There's nothing.
That's a different kind of living in the basement with mom and dad. That's fucking gangster, dude. It'd be awesome for someone to shit talk him like, you just live in the basement with your parents. Like, don't fuck with me, bro.
Yeah. I just made $500,000 in 2 years exercising, just to be clear.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Not
I would
really-
make a shirt if I was Frazier.
not running up any expenses.
Yep.
But no, I mean, like when I was competing in the sport, one of the big things I had was he was kind of a teammate at CrossFit NOLA. But he's really hooked me up with a great deal to live at his house. And I was paying like $500, $600 a month total to live. Like that is very cheap. So I didn't have to have a true full-time job where I was working 9 to 5 and worrying about other things and then trying to get training in on top of that. I was able to just work at the gym.
Yeah. And work at the gym and train.
And,
right? And you didn't
yeah.
have the cognitive load of like, oh man, I don't know if I'm going to be able to make rent this month. Like that is a huge cognitive burden. And you know, there are a lot, I have coached people who have dealt with this, and I know that this is the case across the board, but people are like, man, I'm losing my motivation to train. And I'm like, well, what else you got going on in your life right now? Well, I got this bill coming up, or we got hit with this massive tax bill, or man, I've been fighting with my girlfriend, or, you know, I have this terrible relationship with, with my brother. And, you know, it's been like, there's something going on that they need to deal with if they want to be able to continue to have fire and motivation and compete in the sport, or else they're just going to be constantly carrying around that cognitive load.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's when you start to see burnout happen the most.
Yeah.
It's not that they don't necessarily not enjoy they don't hate the process anymore. It's that they don't have the time to enjoy the process like they used to.
Or they have some thoughts that are so intrusive. You know what I mean? They're constantly coming up that when they're training and they're finally alone with their thoughts, something that they normally love to do, it's that same cognitive stress or cognitive load coming up over and over and over again. And they're like, man, I don't want to be around that.
Oh, that's a good point. It's like, yeah, usually you're training by yourself if you're doing, you know, if you're taking things seriously. Maybe you have some people around you, but yeah, it's the first time in your day maybe where it's just like your brain is just free to think about all that shit.
And if your brain is weighed down by some shit,
yeah,
then it pops up as soon as you're alone and doing your thing.
Yeah. I almost wonder, would it be beneficial for that athlete to then just start taking group classes? That way you're in the shit with everyone else rather than by yourself.
For sure. Especially if they could go take group classes with someone that's going to listen to them. You know what I mean? So what's the best thing to do if you've got, if you got a problem, talk to somebody about it. You know what I mean? Just get it out of you, verbalize it, write it down, something like that. So go train in a group class or go train with a training partner where you can vent. Man, that would be a quick way to get yourself out of that hole. I don't know if that's like a long-term solution to some of those. It's not a long-term solution to financial problems, but at least you'll feel better about it in the moment talking about it.
Yeah. I mean, if you're having financial problems and you're still going to your CrossFit gym, that might be
I feel bad for you, son.
99 problems, but your gym ain't one.
I mean, but the reality is like a CrossFit gym, even at a base level open gym membership, is still 4 or 5 times more expensive than a Crunch Fitness.
Yeah.
Dude, I pay $9.99 a month.
You're going to get people to leave their CrossFit gyms for crunches. Does Crunch have a functional fitness area?
They have, I mean, they're all probably different, but mine has like legit squat racks, all rogued out. We have like a turf area where they could do it. I mean, I don't think it's ideal for anyone being serious, but if you're just having fun doing CrossFit, you could definitely do it in a crunch, I think.
Can you do like kipping pull-ups?
Dude, there was 2 kids the other day, like having a full-on boxing match, like some middle school kids. I was doing my cardio. I was like, this is amazing. Free fight.
Oh, shit. You got good entertainment.
I think that would probably be more conducive to like design fitness style stuff rather than competitive CrossFit training. But if you have that much on your plate, maybe that's all you need to be doing right now in life.
That's an excellent point. That is an excellent point.
Run that back. I
can repeat exactly what you just said, exactly how you said. No. So essentially, like the big takeaways from this are like, all right, first off, if you're an athlete and you're someone who wants to continue to, or to improve your performance level, maybe sometimes taking time to deal with the stuff outside of your training might be more important than the training that you've got in front of you for the day. And that having good productivity systems, one of which is using a planner, which you can find for competitions with the competition planner, or just creating a time block piece of paper for yourself for the day. all of those things can help you get more organized. And when you're more organized, you can be more productive, whether that's in your work life, your training life, your relationships, etc.
Yeah.
I feel like a life coach now. I quit.
Change your state, change your life. Tony Robbins, everybody jump up and clap your hands. Let's go. No, for real, do it. Raise the roof.
At some point, Chris, I would love for you to recount to our audience your Tony Robbins experience.
Have I told you about that?
Yeah, you have.
Oh, it was great. Yeah.
I don't think.
What about it did you like?
I just loved your telling of your Tony Robbins experience.
Oh, it was great.
You're a good storyteller. So, some other things that I wanted to talk to you about. We've been talking a lot about running, and I was grilling you before we got on this podcast, Ryne. All right. Here's the context. I like running. I don't like running as much as you do. I like running as much as other CrossFitters who like running. All right. I'll put it that way. I'm a decent runner, and it's always been one of those things where like I finish upper mid pack, but I don't like finishing upper mid pack. I like to win things. This past summer at MFC, I ran a 5:42 time, 1 mile time trial, and I got all my stats from it, but I don't have them pulled up right now, unfortunately for you. I would like to get into the 5:30 range or maybe the 5:20 range. And I've done multiple running programs, mostly focused on improving my like 5K distance, because that seems to be more commonly tested. Mm-hmm. But dude, I'm not shitting you. I have run somewhere between a 5:45 and a 5:42 for the last 12 years without it moving up or down. So I've gone from being like mid 20s, peak fitness, to a 35-year-old masters athlete running the exact same mile time trial. How do I get this thing faster?
That is such a loaded question. So we were talking a little bit beforehand, and I would want to see your Garmin watch or whatever watch.
It is a Garmin.
It's a Garmin watch. Your statistics, right? So we want to look at what your strides per minute are, your stride length.
Just real quick, what would be an optimal strides per minute?
For the mile, you are probably needing to be close to 195 to 200 strides per minute.
That seems really fast. I got long legs.
Okay. I mean,
I believe you. I'm just saying, I got long legs.
Yeah. I mean, it's just the reality is with running, you have two factors. You have your strides per minute and you have your stride length.
This is exactly swimming. Swimming is stroke rate times stroke length.
Right. If you're already running at a pretty good stride length and you're sitting at 180 strides per minute, which if you're running a 5:42 mile at 180 strides per minute, that's pretty impressive. The only way that you're really going to improve that is to just improve your turnover. And even if you get 18 strides per minute more and you reduce your stride length marginally, you still come out on the positive there.
Are there drills for running? So in swimming, we have a drill we call golf or swalf. I hate that word, so I call it golf. And essentially what you do is you swim 50 yards or 50 meters and you get your time. And then you also count your strokes. And so you add those two together and you get this measurement of efficiency. Essentially, it's not telling you strides per minute, but it's telling you this measurement of performance, your time, and a measurement of your efficiency, the total number of strokes taken. Are there drills like that I could do that would help me move up to this 195 to 200 strides per minute without losing or with minimizing the loss of stride length?
So I would do that with a two-prong approach, right? So I would put you on a metronome and just say, you have to match this cadence. I don't care how uncomfortable it gets. And I would start it off in pretty small doses, right? So let's say your natural cadence is 180. Start at 185, 1 minute on, 1 minute off for 5 minutes. Then I would want you to run, and your neighborhood has plenty of hills.
Yes, it does.
Do some strong hill strides for 20 to 30 seconds. For you trying to improve a mile, just walk down the hill. You don't need to.
What is a hill stride?
So you're running uphill
at
85, 90% effort of a sprint. So what we're trying to do is teach the body to react to the ground stronger, because with the hill getting in the way, you can't reach out as much. So you have to put more force into the ground to gain the distance.
How long would those be?
20 seconds. probably not much more than 100 yards.
Okay. And how steep of a hill would that need to be?
So in an ideal world, I think the running community says like 3 to 5%. But
okay, so I'll give you 3 options. I have extremely steep, and then kind of steep.
I would go to the kind of steep one for that.
Those are my options leaving my driveway.
Yeah. So, I mean, the reality is no one trains in this perfect environment, right? I do hill runs outside and they're not ideal, but they're effective, right? Training works. It's just the degree and the extent at which you're going to adapt. So
you'd focus less from this. Now, granted, you only gave me one piece, but you'd focus less on like energy system development, and you'd focus more on like running specific, like stride specific cadences, changing stride length, changing stride rate. So focusing more on how I'm running rather than the qualities of like engine or,
Yeah, I think that if you change how you run, the physiology reacts to that.
I follow you. It's like if you tell someone they need to hold 2.5 burpees per second and they're like, man, that's really hard. And you're like, yeah, we're going to train this for the next 10 weeks. And at week 10, they're holding 2.4 seconds per burpee and doing it for 100 burpees.
Right.
Yeah, I follow you.
Does improving a mile time have much crossover into CrossFit? I mean, I guess it depends on where your starting point was.
All you, Ryne.
I think yes and no. It really kind of depends on what level of CrossFitter you are.
Let's just take our average person, like our average client for TTT. So say who that is and then answer it.
If they came in from an endurance background, like a marathon background, would improving their running?
No, at that point, I don't think that getting better at a mile time trial or any running would accomplish much.
Okay. High school or college football background.
Yes. And the biggest thing there is they're so accustomed to moving external objects in their training that they haven't ever spent time just moving their body through space for 5, 10, 15, 30 minutes at a time. And most of CrossFit, or maybe not most, but a lot of CrossFit is legitimately just moving your body in space. Burpees, chest to bar, toes to bar, and your respiration rate with running is significantly higher than it is for most things that you're going to do in CrossFit.
Definitely true.
The only issue with running and carrying over to CrossFit is running, breathing is a very consistent cadence. It'll get higher, but it doesn't spike. You don't hold your breath. You don't do things that are going to artificially suppress breathing like you would have to do in CrossFit to lift heavy under fatigue.
You could do some things to hold your breath while you're running, like Emil Zatopek did. If you guys are interested in that, go check out Zatopek's training. It's insane. He was doing it in the 1920s or 40s or something like that when nobody was doing anything even remotely close to that. But the other thing, my addition to this is I have found that athletes who struggle with the bounding portions of CrossFit, double unders, box jumps, burpee box jump overs, bar facing burpees, the small jump, the little jump, or even like the kind of little jump to a 20 or 24 inch box. People who struggle with those, who dealing with the physiological consequences of those, do benefit tremendously from adding running to their program, because it's like a bunch of little mini bounds over and over and over. And they're learning to orient their body so that they can absorb the forces and breathe while, absorbing that eccentric load and keeping their spine neutral and all those things. Like that is where I've seen the most benefit for CrossFitters if they struggle with that.
Yeah. And that would probably require being intentional with your running. Like you can't just go out on a slow plodding jog at 155 strides per minute, which we know that once you kind of get under 162, 165 is when we start seeing a lot of injuries in the sport, just because the time under.
Say that again. I'm actually going to write that down. You said 162
to 165.
Below that.
Below that is when we start seeing a lot of injuries in running, because the ground contact time is so high that you end up overpronating and causing a lot of wear and tear issues.
So what you're saying is the CrossFit shuffle.
The CrossFit Shuffle is a prime example of that. So if you're testing a Metcon, you have to do what you have to do to get through it.
Right.
But
sometimes that's the CrossFit Shuffle.
If you're doing, as we move in like through the elite path and some of the other CrossFit athletes that I'm programming for who have to be good at running at the games, we're going to start doing some hard running or CrossFit work into metronome cadence running, where you just learn how to recover at 175, 180 strides per minute and then start to
Are you
extend.
programming running and design right now?
Yes.
Okay. And is that just in the elite path or all?
Just the elite.
Okay.
And I'm programming the swimming for just the elite path.
Man, that elite path, huh? Yeah. 2 nerds in it.
2 nerds programming cyclical
How's the running been
modalities.
going? How long have you been doing it and how's it been going?
You mean within the elite path?
Yeah.
So they started at the turn of the year. The initial progressions that I wrote, I think there was some miscommunication on what I had wrote and how much volume it was. So there was a regression.
Nice.
And then the athletes were doing way too much work for the first 2 weeks. And now it's settled in, but so far it seems to be going well. This is just a base building phase. So when you're in that phase, saying that something's going well, it's literally, are they hurt? Are they not hurt? Because if they're not hurt, then everything's going well because all you're doing is building the foundation.
And your timeline is to what stage of all this?
July 5th?
Something like that. Yeah, the CrossFit games.
I mean, we're going to have a lot of these athletes. We want them to be able to crush, continentals, but we also don't know what that's going to look like. And historically speaking, regional style workouts don't have, if it's run by CrossFit HQ, don't have more than 1 run. However, at the games, 3, 4, 5 plus runs. So it's more important for the games.
How many people are in that path right now?
It's a great question.
It's in the 20 to 25 range, I think.
Yeah.
I was looking at the leaderboard just the other day. I was leaderboarding,
Yeah.
of course. So a question still pertaining to running, and maybe this kind of ties into the elite path stuff that you're writing, but a lot of CrossFitters that I work with often struggle to run easy. So if I'm like, all right, I want you to go out for a 30-minute recovery run. They struggle more with going out and running easy than they do if I were go out and run 30 minutes at a strong pace or go out and do a 30-minute time trial. They would perceive that running easy as harder than running at higher heart rates, higher outputs.
So I think some of what we're seeing is that stride slowed down and they don't know how to regulate their force into the ground, right? So if they're running at 170 strides per minute, they have to be at an 8-minute mile or faster because they don't know how to down regulate. So then they go into that slower cadence and they start feeling mechanical pain. If that's what you're referring to. Yeah,
that's exactly what I'm referring to.
I think the other thing is the CrossFit relationship with pain in easy and hard is very different from what we see in the cyclical world, right? So I work with a couple of the higher level CrossFitters and do their running individually. And I started giving them easy work just to see where they would start out at. And their easy runs are faster than my easy runs. But my half marathon time is 30 seconds per mile faster than their 5K.
Faster, wait, your marathon is 30 seconds faster per mile.
Yes.
Than 5K. Okay. So that puts that into perspective for me.
So their concept of what's easy is this is submaximal. So it has to be easy, or that means that it's easy. Easy means easy. You should be able to have a full conversation at your easy pace. And I've gone to the point of I prescribe the pace. This is your easy pace.
Do you have people run with a metronome while they're doing that so that they can keep the higher cadence?
On occasion, yes. Ideally, that is done with people who have air runners or true forms or some sort of treadmill. Because if we're holding a phone while we're running, we're messing with our arm swing. So if you have one of the armbands that works if you have it hooked up to Bluetooth headphones. That would be quite annoying in my opinion, but hey, I mean, if that's what it takes, like,
there's a lot of,
you wanted to be good at this sport.
There's a lot of annoying things that I've done in the past to improve my performance that have worked. They were annoying when I was doing mobility work is annoying to me, but I know that I must do it. I absolutely have to do it if I want to continue to train and compete the way that I do. So speaking of like the struggle to run easy, what do you do with people? Like, so you said you probably don't do a lot of, metronome work. You give them paces, but like what types of runs do you have them go do? Is it like minute on, minute off type stuff? Is it, like minute run, minute walk? What are you having people do to improve that?
So if we're looking at just improving their ability to run on the longer end, it is usually I'll start with 2 minutes of running, 1 minute of walking, and then just extend that out. And the goal being to get them to run about 40 minutes continuously. For CrossFitters, I don't think that running more than 40 minutes continuously is necessary until we start getting closer to the games. I mean, the reality is like I'm training for a marathon. I still have not run longer than like 16 or 18 miles, and I'm only 3 months away.
That's a long run.
It is, but like you don't need to run the distance that you're going to compete at in order to compete.
All right. Since you've hijacked this entire podcast to talk about running, here's some questions I've got for you. First off, how do you keep your feet and ankles and knees and hips healthy while engaging in in more running? And think about this more from a context of a CrossFitter than how you keep your hips and ankles and knees healthy. Because I think that's very different.
Yeah. So feet, I would just start with we have the Mobo board at the gym. I have one at my house. You now have one.
What's a Mobo board?
A Mobo board is essentially if you imagine a wobble board, your foot goes in, the big toe stays out, the other 4 toes go into a hole. So Chris has it pulled up here. That's a Mobo
board.
And the great thing about this company is they actually have the set of exercises just on their exercise library on their website.
I've done some of them, and it's a great humbling tool. That's for sure. Like you get on it and you do your taps, right? So you use this sort of wobble board and you're doing taps, which is going to like strengthen your feet. But then you start doing some of the other stuff like the twists. There's a banded twist, like the tippy bird. Some of those things are really challenging. And
dang, they couldn't got someone with better nails on their foot.
Seriously.
Like that one toenail looked crusty as hell.
So that's where
call me up, Mobo board. We'll fix this.
So that's where I would start with the feet. That will actually take care of some of your hip stuff as well.
And ankles, obviously.
And ankles. Yeah. The knees over toes protocol, always good to warm up or cool down. And then just spending time barefoot. Like it is amazing to me when you ask people, how much time do you spend barefoot in a day? Like, oh, I go home and my shoes come off. How much time do you spend barefoot?
Yeah. Not in socks. Well, for me, that's entirely dependent upon whether it's summer or winter.
Yeah. I mean, that's fair, but I try to get shoes and socks off for at least a few hours.
With the idea of just strengthening like intrinsic muscles in your feet and like, is that what your goal is with that?
And I own toe spreaders.
I bought them on your recommendation and I've used them twice.
The thing is that's a passive thing, or it should be initially, right? We don't need to walk around in them. In fact, it would be very painful to walk around in them when you first put them in, if your toes are pretty, like, for lack of better term, crunched.
I got good feet, Ryne, except they cramp a lot.
But your spacing is pretty good.
Yeah.
Mine is not, like, still to this day. And I think that a lot of it has to do with wearing cleats where you were barefoot.
My feet were like this in the water with my toes pointed. Yeah.
Yeah. So a little bit different background, but I think that cleats in particular make it worse.
I also, I have to say that this probably contributed to it, but you remember when toe shoes were like a thing? So this would have been what, 2007?
09?
Yeah,
Yeah.
2007, 2000. I went all in. I bought 2 pairs and I wore them all the time. I did runs. Like I did, 5 mile, 7 mile, 10 mile runs on concrete with those. And my feet hurt every day, but my feet now are pretty strong, and they're in like, I got toes that open up. I can lift my big toe, like all the little like foot and ankle mobility stuff is really good. Probably for me, just bashing my feet to a pulp with toe shoes.
Hey, Ryan, you'll like this. In college, I went out to the track at University of Memphis, and I was like, that was in 08, 07, 08 or whatever it was. And I was like, I'm going to run barefoot. And so I took my, it was a normal day, not super hot, but not super cold, kind of hot. But I took my socks off, and then I touched the track, just a normal track. And I was like, oh, fine. It's fine. And then I ran and I did, like a 5K or whatever. So, about 25 to 30 minutes for me. And I felt fine the whole time I was running. I was like, this is fine. Yeah. As soon as I got off that track, it became very clear that I had just burnt the shit out of my feet. But cause you just do little quick taps, tap real quick. And then once I was done, I was like, oh, I ruined my feet for like a month.
It's like the people who walk on the
hot
coals.
coals. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
In the moment, didn't hurt.
Chris ran a 5K on hot coals.
Smart.
Oh man. So the last one, you and I were talking about this just the other day. And why is it, in your opinion, that running intervals, so say 3 by 1 mile at your 5K pace, is harder than just going out and straight up running the 5K?
So I think that's different per person.
Yeah. But that's true for both of us.
For both of us, yes. And you hear it in a lot of high performing athletes as well. Not that you're not a high performing athlete.
Thanks, Ryan.
I'm not. I think that a lot of it has to do with as you settle, the acidity that happens from running hard. I mean, if you're running at your 5K pace, that is painful from...
Yeah, you're getting some metabolite accumulation, that's for sure.
So once that settles and you're no longer having the blood pump through, I don't think that you're transporting some of those metabolites away. But for me, I think most of it is a mental thing of...
Damn, I have to go run this again?
That hurt. I have to do it again.
Yeah.
I literally did that exact session on Monday, and my 3rd mile, all 3 miles were just sub 5K pace, or my established 5K pace. And they felt so much harder than I remember a 5K ever feeling.
I find the same thing, like the intervals at a specific pace. So this is true running. This is true rowing for me, right? So take my 30-minute time trial and have me do 3 10-minute time trials at my, or 3 10-minute intervals at my 30-minute time trial pace with like 3 minutes, 4 minutes rest between. And each one of them is harder than the 30 minutes in its entirety.
Yeah.
It's odd that that's the case.
So I think that for me, maybe for you, I'm very much a rhythm runner. Like if I can establish a good rhythm, find a good breathing cadence, just feel comfortable, then I'll perform a lot better. And every time you stop, you're breaking your rhythm and you have to reestablish a rhythm. And I feel like one of the reasons that I'm better at longer distances than I am at the short middle distances is because it takes me a while to find that rhythm. So I'll do like 3 by 10 minute run at about half marathon, just slightly faster than half marathon. And each subsequent run feels a little bit better. Is that why
black people are better at running? They have better rhythm? That's it. We nailed it.
You got it, Chris. I would love to.
I mean, look at your goofy white ass. I know you ain't got no rhythm. Come on. Snap me a beat, Ryan.
No, because we all know what would happen.
Yeah.
It's embarrassing for the whole company.
I would love to ask that same question of all the different TTT coaches and see and do it independently. See like what each person's answer would be. Evan's would probably be something to do with the cardiac system, cardiac lag. Max's, no idea. Brandon's would be separation value between the intervals. It would be very interesting to ask everybody because I'm sure that first off, everybody's experience is vastly different. And secondly, I think it would be really interesting just to see how each coach kind of creates the story to explain why that happens.
One thing I would be curious about is if Adam or Mia or Becky experience the same thing that we do. So
Probably not.
I am very, like, I
I
tend,
mean, girls.
Adam.
Oh shit! I didn't hear Adam in there. Why them?
because they're more enduring.
Yeah, they
Oh,
all.
I got you.
So they don't,
I really didn't hear Adam.
so I perform better on the long, I'm more of like an ends type of athlete. So I do pretty well on very short end, pretty well on very long end. My middle is not very good. But I think the one thing that Kyle and I have in common is that our short end power production is pretty good. And I'd be curious to see what would happen for athletes who aren't able to express power as much on the short end if they experience that same phenomenon.
Probably not. They probably would tell us that we're, batshit and that it's way easier to do intervals of something than an actual time trial.
Hey, we got to wrap up. Can we end it with this?
Yeah.
I think that if I was listening to this, I might be like really interested in running now. And if I'm a CrossFitter and now I'm like, perking up about running, like maybe I'll try that. Where on the hierarchy for the general, CrossFit athlete, that's a fan of TTT or an athlete for TTT, where on the hierarchy of needs does that fall? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I think for the bulk of people who are getting individual coaching from us, it is something that needs to be constantly touched and worked on, but probably not above gymnastics, endurance, barbell cycling, and depending on how strong they are, their absolute strength. So
Yeah. Who doesn't need to go down this rabbit hole right now?
Man, I kind of feel like that one of the things that I tend to do is use running in some form, typically on the assault runner. I've talked about that on our running podcast forever ago, as part of people's competition prep, even if they're competing in the open where there won't be running or most likely won't be running. I think we can assume that. But I found that what it does for, we'll just call it engine, what it does for their engine and their ability to breathe under fatigue and their ability to deal with the bounding contractions. It does something. It does something that isn't captured by rowing. It does something that isn't captured by the assault bike. And so I like to use a run once a week or something like that as part of their prep.
I think it should be there, but I don't think that it should be a focus in improving your metrics on there, just because it doesn't matter how well how good your engine is if you can't do more than 6 unbroken chest to bar pull-ups.
For sure. I also work with a very different athlete population than the bulk of CrossFitters. So that's a good point as well.
Yeah. So if you are getting through phase 1 for sure, definitely I would say constantly getting touches and working on it. And if you're not getting through phase 1 because of muscular limitations in your ability to do chest to bar pull-ups, thrusters, overhead squats, then less of a focus.
I'd agree with that 100%.
Cool. And we mentioned the competition manual, which we're going to have to figure out how to get back on the website somehow. So hopefully by the time we post this episode, if you are still interested in that, you can go find it at trainingthinktank.com. Follow Kyle Ruth at
Kyle Ruth _TTT.
Follow Ryne at
You don't know your Instagram.
don't follow.
Don't follow me.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Peace.